Smallville recently turned 20 years old, and since I have nothing better to do, I thought I'd sit down and revisit the pilot for today's Lost and Found. Why just the pilot? Because it's 10 seasons of a show, and that's such a big undertaking, but hey, if you want to see me do that, just let me know. Smallville premiered on the WB in October of 2001 to excellent viewership of nearly 8.4 million viewers, which was a record for the network. The show is a coming-of-age story focusing on young Clark Kent and his fictional hometown of Smallville in Kansas before he becomes the iconic Superman. The first 4 seasons would focus primarily on Clark and his friends' time in high school before the show would evolve and struggle to find a footing in its latter half. Initially, the idea for Smallville started off as a young Bruce Wayne series pitched by Toland's Robbins production company. However, the feature film division of WB had spent years trying to put together an origin story of Batman and therefore trashed the idea. That same year in 2000, Alfred Goh and Miles Miller were approached by president of Warner Bros. Television, Peter Roth, about developing a pilot around the idea of a young Superman. Miller and Goh would make the infamous phrase, "no tights, no flights" rule, a pact that stated Clark Kent would never wear the suit or fly in the series. The two wanted to strip the essence of Clark Kent down to nothing and explore the character in a way that had never been done before. They wanted to focus on Clark's early identity and the guilt of his arrival to Earth and the destruction it would create. Lex Luthor, Superman's primary antagonist, would also be essential to the series and would be deeply explored. My personal history with Smallville was pretty interesting. I remember watching the pilot way back when it debuted in 2001, but for some reason lost interest. Around the 8th season, Pop Tot and I returned to the series once again thanks to an epic Black Friday deal where each season was $10. Immediately, we were hooked due to the painstaking development into Clark Kent's essence as well as watching a young Lex Luthor struggle to find his footing before succumbing to the dark path we all knew.
You were right about me all along, Mr. Kent. I am the villain of the story.
The show would ultimately fall victim to what many shows have done, staying around too long. By season 10, Lex Luthor and Lana Lang were gone. The show had struggled to put Clark Kent as a Superman we knew, and instead went to this weird middle ground that wasn't entirely faithful to his mythology. They added famous, prestigious characters to the mix, but sadly, most really didn't work. By the end of season 10, the show was only able to rally in 2.98 million viewers, almost a third of what the show debuted at 9 years prior.
Wasn't a competition.
Of course it wasn't.
For today's Lost and Found, I had wondered with the show reaching 20 years, if it would still hold up. While I had no interest in delving deep into a show with 217 episodes, I thought at least the pilot would give some insight. For the most part, 20 years later, Smallville holds up as a well-rounded show faithful to the origins of Superman while also exploring Clark Kent in a grounded, emotional, and human way that made him entirely relatable.
I saved the guy's life. So you think you deserve a prize?
The strength of the first episode is really Clark's angst, and his inability to fit in, and his upbringing with 2 wonderful but overly protective parents in Jonathan and Martha Kent. For me, this is where the pilot excelled, with that relationship and protection that Jonathan had over Clark. Jonathan Kent actor John Schneider, famous for his time as Bo Duke in The Dukes of Hazzard, might be the best actor in the show, at least in the pilot.
What are you trying to tell me, Dad? That I'm from another planet? I suppose you stashed my spaceship in the attic.
Actually, it's in the storm cellar.
One of the other highlights of the show for me, at least in the long running of Smallville, was Lex Luthor. We have seen quite a few adaptations over the years of Lex Luthor, and this one to me feels truest to the form of Lex. Throughout Smallville, we see this slippery slope Lex goes on, and those seeds are planted well throughout the pilot episode. Michael Rosenbaum does a nice job, and something about his portrayal really humanizes this supervillain. Now, what didn't work for me was something Smallville is known for, and that's the villain of the week. In the pilot episode, it's really a backdrop, which is a silly homecoming prank gone wrong, turning a kid into an electric villain. It is really silly, and the conflict is just over and done with. It lacks a lot of nuance or intrigue. I honestly believe the only reason it's here is for the Jesus imagery involving Clark. Another problem I had with the show is a lot of stuff involving Chloe, played infamously by Allison Mack, just feels tacked on. In hindsight, maybe this was different on first viewing, but the public perception of Mack is so negative that it's hard to sit through a scene with her in it. Obviously, a lot of that is public knowledge, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but the Wall of Weird as well as the Monster of the Week premise just aren't that intriguing, especially in the pilot episode. So, overall, I really liked the pilot episode of Smallville. For Tom Welling, being a relatively new actor, he holds his own with the material and doesn't overdo it. His scenes with Schneider are by far the best parts of the show. Some of the special effects don't look great, but this is a TV show from the early 2000s. The show also didn't feel too Dawson's Creeky. I guess it's the phrase I'm going with, but just go with it. Overall, it aged pretty well, and I was pleasantly surprised with it. The only thing the episode was missing was this. If you're looking forward to me reviewing more of the show, let me know down in the comments below. Were you a fan of the show when it first came out? Let me know your memories of it, and I'll see you on the next video.